Good morning, my dear students. Today we are going to see chapter number 2, the historiography Indian tradition. Last day we are seeing historiography in the ancient period. Historiography in the ancient period. Now we are going to see the historiography in the medieval period. How was the style of writing the historical critical narrative in the medieval period? So let us see the historiography. So historiography means the writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. So how was the style of writing in the medieval period? So this is the point. Now let's see the style of writing. Raja Tarangani, the history of Kashmir by Kalhana in the 12th century CE Christian era is quite close to the concept of modern historiography. Kalhana himself says that he wrote this text after critically examining various sources like inscriptions, coins, remains of ancient monuments, dynastic records and local traditions. So the style of writing the Raj Tarangani, the history of Kashmir by Kalhana in the 12th century Christian era. So Kalhana, he wrote the history of Kashmir and he described about the Kashmir in his book entitled Raj Tarangani, and that book is close to the medieval period. It is that concept of a modern historiography, close to the concept of modern historiography. So Kalhana himself that he wrote his text after critically examining various sources like inscriptions, coins, remains of ancient monuments, dynastic records, and local tradition. Means without confirmation, he didn't write anything. He says that he examined critically the various sources, the inscriptions, the coins, whatever he got, whatever the facts available to him. So he critically examined, and after that he wrote in his book, and that book is close to the concept of modern historiography. In the medieval India, the historians in the courts of Muslim rulers were influenced by Arabic and Persian historiography. Among them, Jawuddin Barani holds an important place. So in the medieval period in India, the persons, those who were the historians and those who were in the courts of Muslim rulers, they were influenced by Arabic and Persian historiography. They were impressed with the writing of Arabic and Persian historiography. So among them, Jawuddin Barani holds an important place. The historians, those who were in the court of Muslim rulers, among them was Jawuddin, and he was considered as in the center point. Means he was in the center point. Among them, Jawuddin Barani holds an important place. In Turki, Firuz Shahi, a book written by him, he has stated the purpose of historiography. So Jawuddin, he was in the center point among them, those who were considered as a historians in the medieval period. And Jawuddin wrote the book Tariq-e-Firuz Shahi. So in his book, he wrote the purpose of historiography. What is the purpose of historiography? What is the reason of historiography? He stated in his book. According to him, the historian's duty is not limited only to the recording of the rulers' valor and policies of welfare, but he should also write about the rulers' failing and incorrect policies. So what he stated in his book, so the historian should not write only about the valor policies of welfare, but the historians should be right about the rulers failing and incorrect policies. Suppose maybe someone king is failed in his policy, he was incorrect, so that should be written in the book by the historians. So he stated in his book. Bharani further says that historians should also take into consideration the impact of the teaching of the wise, the learned and the sant on the cultural life of the people. And so the historians should be right the failing and incorrect policies of the king, as well as he also should write in his book the teaching of the wise, learned and sant, the culture of the people. So means all around development of the particular period or respective period of the king should be mentioned in his book, and that is the duty of the historian. So thus Bharani expanded the scope of historiography, and also the Bharani expanded the scope of historiography. For the historians in the Mughal courts, praising the emperors and exhibition of royalty became more important. So the historians, those who are in the court of Mughal, so they praised the emperors, they admired the emperors and the exhibition of loyalty, and that was the more important by the historians. And the custom of adding suitable poetic quotes and beautiful pictures was also introduced. Babar, the founder of the Mughal Empire, wrote an autobiography entitled Tujik-i-Babri. So Babar, he was one of the famous empire, and Babar was the founder of the Mughal Empire, and he wrote his autobiography, and that book was entitled Tujik-i-Babri. Tujik-i-Babri, it was the most famous book, and it was the autobiography of Babar, and Babar was considered as a founder of the Mughal Empire. It contains the description of the battles fought by him. So how did he fight against the kings, against his enemies? So it was described in his book. Babar also recorded his minute observations of various regions and cities traveled by him, including the local economy, customs and the flora. Not only he mentioned in his book about the valor of him, about his personal records, but also he mentioned in his book about the regions and cities where he went, where he visited, and also he mentioned about the local economy and customs and the flora. Flora means the trees, different types of the flora, means the what are the plants, trees, about the woods. He also mentioned, and also he mentioned the customs of the people, their living, their lifestyle, their food, their cloth. About all those things he mentioned in his book, Babar. Abul Fazl's Akbarnama is very important from the viewpoint of the critical historiography. His method of collecting the authentic historical documents and their scrutiny is looked upon as a devoid of the page, bias and hence realistic. So Abul Fazl's Akbarnama is very important from the viewpoint of the critical historiography. So as far as the critical historiography is concerned, Abul Fazl's Akbarnama is most important. So his method of collecting the authentic real historical documents. So means the Abul was collecting the real documents, original documents, and after criticism, after verifying the documents, he was writing the history, and it was most central, it was most important for him, and their scrutiny is looked upon as devoid devoid of bias and hence realistics. So after scrutiny, after verifying the documents, after verifying the documents, after getting the evidence, after getting the proof, there he was writing thus information in his book. It was so important for him. Bakar is an important type of historical document of medieval times. So Bakar means it was the famous type of book. It was one type of book. Means almost information about the king, it was mentioned in Bakar. And Bakar was the main source for writing the history. So Bakar is an important type of historical documents of medieval times. So the persons, those who were the historians, and they had the main source for writing the history, that was the Bakar. That was the Bakar. And it contains eulogies of the heroes and stories. And Bakar means what? Bakar means the writing of information of the king. How did they fight against the enemies? How was their lifestyle? And also their what you can say, the correct policies, incorrect policies, and especially in Bakar there was the admired the king. There was praised the king in Bakar, and so the Bakar document was so important for writing the history, because there was the eulogies. Eulogies mean the praise of the heroes and stories of historic events, battles, lives of great men. So Bakar was the main source for writing the history, because it was mentioned that the stories of historic events, battles, and lives of great men, and that's where the Bakar was the main source for writing the history. Marathi Bakars are of various types. Sabhasad Bakar was written by Krishnaji Ananta Sabhasad during the region of Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj. So Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj, during the period of Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj, there was a Marathi Bakar. What was the name of that Marathi Bakar? Sabhasad Bakar. And that Sabhasad Bakar was written by Krishnaji Ananta Sabhasad, and he wrote in his book Bakar about the Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj. It is an important Bakar for getting information about the rule of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So he mentioned about the Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj, but there was also mention of the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and that is why for the historians there was a main source for writing the history of Shivaji Maharaj, because that Sabhasad Bakar was so important for getting the information for Shivaji Maharaj. Bhausahebance Bakar describes the battle of Panipat. Another Bakar entitled the Panipatchi Bakar is also about the same event. So Bhausahebance Bakar described the battle of Panipat. So there was a great battle of Panipat, and about the Panipat there was a detailed information in Bhausahebance Bakar, and that's where so Bhausahebance Bakar also was the main source for writing the history. Holkaranchi Kayapat provides the information about the Holkars and their contributions to the Maratha rule. Holkaranchi Bakar, another document is there, Holkaranchi Bakar, and Holkaranchi Kayapat. Holkaranchi Kayapat also in there was described about the contribution information about the Holkars and their contribution to the Maratha rule. So Kayapat provides information about the Holkars and their contributions to the Maratha rule. So that's why Maratha ruled over Maharashtra, and how did Holkars help to the Maratha for ruling, and that is why so we get the real information about the Holkars, how did they contribute for Maratha rule, and that was the Holkaranchi Kayapat, that was the Bakar. Bakars can be divided into various types. such as the biographies of kings, dynastic history, descriptions, events, history of a sect, autographies regarding the grievance based on the mythologies and state administration by a king. So Bakar is the main document for writing the history for historians. So different periods have different Bakars, and in the Bakar, so there is information respect to periods. So Bakar can be divided into various types such as biographies of king, dynastic history, description of the events, a history of a sect, autographies regarding the grants based on mythologies and state administration by a king. And so Bakars can be divided into various parts, because Bakars are based on the biographies of king. Some Bakars are based on the description of events. Some Bakars are based on the regarding grievances, means the complaints. So some Bakars are based on the mythologies. So that is for today, and next we'll continue in the next topic.